Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to Kindred Spirits here on the RFQ Refugees Podcast Network. I'm going to go ahead and classify this. This is an emergency podcast. I was not expecting to do a Kindred Spirits podcast this week. I think that was not in the cards. And then the unbelievable news dropped via tweet. We're going to get into all of that. John, I'm assuming people listen to the show don't listen to United 96. We just did United 96. Now we're doing Kindred Spirits. There's your behind the scenes. How you doing, my friend? If you're doing well.
I'm doing great. No, it's good. I'm having a good time. We were having a good day on Twitter here. It's been a positive day here at Kindred Spirits Twitter HQ. Just a wild day. Let's just skip the formalities and get right into the meat of what's been happening here.
Yes. I feel like I'm wearing a Kickers shirt because they're the only soccer team that's giving me any semblance of joy right now. Both in Europe and elsewhere. But let's get into this. So we're all relaxing. I'm getting ready to start work. I'm coming back from a beach vacation. And then I forget, I think I saw the tweet. I think I was just kind of like taking a break. I kind of scrolled through Twitter, and there is literally the shortest tweet I think I've ever seen.
It was almost like a haiku of a coach's firing.
It just says it's Richie Burke. Chris Ward is no longer the coach. Bye everybody. Hey, look at all our U.S. women's national team players that are going to be
for sale. Baby shoes never worn of coach firing tweets. That's what that was. And you know that we saw it at the same time because we both tweeted about it within 30 seconds, just saying, "Wow, classic us." That's a classic us move.
But we tried to develop a like on-call schedule for everybody, and just completely dropped that by like week 3. Yeah. So
if only this was our job, then we could do that.
But enjoy the duplicate tweets, everybody. Let's just before we get into everything else sort of around this, let's talk about the actual firing. Do we agree with it? Do we disagree with it? John, I'll start with you, man, because I believe after the last Spirit game, you were kind of upset, and you were saying like, I'm not so sure. This is on our Google chat. You were saying, I think Chris Ward should be done. I think it should be done. You've changed your tune a little bit, but I think that might have been just anger.
No, I think I was responding. There are a lot of fans that had talked to me. Some of the folks that cover the team had talked to me, saying that he was in the hot seat. And originally, early in the season, I was thinking that's dumb. No one could coach through this. And then as the national team players got back, and that mentality was not there to finish out games with leads, I was like, well, where else can you point the finger at this point? Like, I wonder now in this lost season, granted, he won you the championship last year, you signed him, but he is still from a league perspective, not a renowned coach that you cannot afford to move on from. I mean, he did a great thing for this club, but if you're Michelle Kang, you're not like, well, I can't fire Chris Ward. The fans will revolt, and I'll never find a coach that's more accomplished than him, and then I just gotta hang on. So, I didn't think it was going to happen right now. If it was going to happen, I thought maybe in the offseason, if they didn't improve at all, it was possible. When you look at a team that has played 16 games and won 1 after winning the championship last year with relatively the same roster, questions obviously need to be asked. But well, before we get into the reasons stated, what's your snap reaction to having him be dismissed?
I mean, my snap reaction was, I really hope this is performance based. This is your run of the mill dismissal of a coach, and there's not any, because I mean, even if it is that, then I am going to be relieved, because I like Chris Ward is from all we've seen from the outside, is a pretty good guy, and from all we've heard, the fans, he really endeared himself to the fans. He's famous for wearing some gear that supports, women in sports and all of those things, which is great. So from that perspective, I'm like, please let this be just kind of a run of the mill, dismissal. It's not working out. Results weren't there. And, I did kind of think, I'm like, my thought was, okay, we're going to get the national team players back. Yeah, it might be a lost season, but I think, they're going to pull out some results here. But then it wasn't happening. I mean, it hasn't been happening. I mean, you had a collapse at home again at Segra Field. it just wasn't happening. And I think I kind of accepted. I'm like, I mean, if this is performance based, there's got to be, maybe there is something else going on here that's under the hood. And then, of course, speaking of, Goff drops the story. Apparently, there's been some strained relationships amongst the players.
Here's the quote: Ward's relationship with several players had been deteriorating this year. Two people familiar with the situation said, over the weekend, after a conflict at practice, Ward was disinvited from a team retreat. One person said, requesting anonymity to speak on the matter. So I think so. Here's so two things. One, does not sound great, but also does not sound entirely foreign. Except for the second part, the being disinvited from the party thing is kind of weird, and I want more. I want a little bit more information on that one. Like, did the team as a whole say, lose your invitation? Was it one or two players? Was it, was it the front off? I don't know. I think I want to know more about that. But that quote got a lot of attention, and everyone said, "I hope the players are okay." And I get that. That impetus is very coming from an excellent place, considering what has happened in NWSL for the last X number of years.
Has there been a coach in NWSL that has been let go for just purely performance reasons?
Not very many.
Not very many. I guarantee you that. I'm sure there are, but that scale is certainly tipped in one direction at this point.
But I want to make sure that, I tried to call attention to this in a follow-up. It got half the attention as the quote, but I think bad relationships with some players does not necessarily mean something like felonious or Molly Molly will not be writing an article in the Washington Post describing your travails necessarily. It could be, but it also that sometimes coaches and players just don't get along, particularly coaches and players in a season as frustrating and miserable as this one following the previous one. So I think that, it could still, we're T-minus 12 hours with very limited reporting on this and no press release and no further context from the team. So we are all very feeling in the dark blind. So something could come out in the next day or week that could make all of us look stupid. So keep that in mind as a time capsule of where we are in time and space as we were talking about this.
Well, the one quote again that says something, I'm worried that there's something else going on here, is when the team is like, we're not even going to put out a press statement. And I'm like, you can't find a intern or somebody to like write a quick thank you, Chris Ward? Can't get a quick quote from from the owner? Thank you, Chris Ward. You won us a championship. That part to me is incredibly bizarre about all of this. Just a tweet. Now, apparently, according to Stephen Goff, the good news is that the players were notified ahead of time via a meeting. Good. Great.
They fixed that one process. That's good.
That process was at least covered. I mean, I understand that the spirit from a front office, people perspective, not a whole lot of people there. But I mean, it does raise questions. Like, you literally just have to write. You can even be a paragraph statement, no quotes. Like, at least put out an email statement. Like, even an email statement along with the tweet. It's just the tweet, and that part to me has me worried. I'm like, well, what else? Like, why the sudden like we're not even going to thank the coach?
Right.
That has me worried that there's something else going on here. Because we've seen plenty, and I think I wrote the tweet a very badly. Wrote a tweet. I was like, Richie Burke got a better send off from the team than Chris Ward has gotten. The Chicago coach whose name escapes me. I can't think of the Chicago coach's name. Rory Dames got a whole press release. I'm almost positive. Like, thank you so much. You did so well. And then the story drops. Like,
well, look at the press. Look at the outcome of those press releases. So maybe they're being skittish. So that leads some credence to sort of like maybe there's something else going on here. We don't know. I will say this. I don't know Chris Ward personally at all. And I didn't know Richie Burke at all, really. All I got to know for both of them was sort of like, what they wanted to show to the media. Chris Ward, to me, came off as a very considered, relatively calm person. I'm sure that on the field with a whistle in his mouth, it's a different story. But he seemed like a guy that was not extraordinarily quick to temper, maybe Richie Burke was. And everything he had heard, I had heard some things and some whispers about Richie and about how the players actually felt about him. I've not heard that. I've not heard anything about Chris. It says some players. It doesn't say all players. And I think he may have made enemies with some players who are very important to the team, who may have a direct line to the boss. That I don't want to speculate on what was said. Maybe it was everybody. Maybe they had complete agreement and solidarity that this guy's got to go. It's not going to work out. But until we know anything, we don't know anything. All we know is that. Go ahead.
No, I think there's some. I do wonder. This is his first head coaching job. He gets handed the reins to this team. He does everything right in what you should do. The team itself, I think, it seemed pretty clear last year. The team was almost kind of driving itself. The players, He was doing some coaching. Maybe he was making some suggestions. He couldn't
change tactics. So,
he was kind of running it as, running it as you should. And, just kind of keeping the wheels on the way, keeping the oil changed, everything like that. Gets to this offseason. Now he's named the permanent head coach. And like anybody, you do want to maybe try to put your stamp on some things. You want to maybe try to adjust some things that you think were good. Maybe when he tried to do that, some players didn't like it. They already had, basically were allowed to sort of drive the team by himself. I'm not saying Chris Ward wasn't somewhat in charge as being named manager and sort of being the interim manager at that time, but it was pretty clear the players were in control. And then suddenly maybe there was a little bit of control lost, and maybe some players got upset about that. He was trying to do things. He was saying, they were saying, no, we don't want to do this. And he said, well, I think this is going to give us the best chance. I'll consider your opinion, but just kept trying it. And it wasn't working. The team was getting worse. It's easy to coach a team when they're winning. When they're winning and everything's going great, very easy. Very difficult once things go poorly. And I think things started to go poorly. I think, things started to deteriorate, and, you could see it on the field. And I think maybe it just got to a point where some players, probably some high up players, were like, we're done here. Like, this is not going well. Like, we're not happy here. We're not playing well. And this is not going in a direction that we want. And players have incredible amounts of control. And they were probably like, yep.
What do you think about that, Ted? What do you think about the ability of a coach to manage, a manager to manage, if it's not necessarily ownership and management over here, players over here? Players play, coaches coach, owners spend the money and make the final call. What do you think about the ability of a team to function when the players have enough juice to just be like, no, you're not invited to this retreat. We're done with you. We made a call. You're done, and then they go. What do you, barring any other ththings that come out that were like, well, okay, never mind. But what do you think? Can a team function that way, where there's so much, where the ship can mutiny the captain whenever they want?
I mean, it happens. It happens in men's professional soccer all the time.
Sure.
Managers are.
Chelsea is a good example of
Chelsea,
of that.
Man United with Jose Mourinho. I mean, there's examples across the board. I think if you are any NWSL organization, you are hypersensitive and hyper aware of what the players are telling you, because you absolutely do not want to miss anything. Like right now we're seeing, I think there's been fallout recently with certain coaches. Right now I think they are saying, like, we cannot have anybody sort of come in and rise up to be a coach of an NWSL franchise, and then we find out 6 months later that they are, actually not a good person. They might put on a good face, but they're doing this. Mm-hmm. It's not all coaches were just Richie Burke, who were just, loud and obnoxious and abusive. And there were some coaches that coached for decades that were very well thought of, but were very, very, they would groom players and abuse them like that. So you cannot have another situation like that. So I think that's playing a role here potentially. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing either, with how some of these players have been treated and around everything else.
Yep.
I mean,
I think that's a good. The pendulum is swinging the other direction now, and I think that's totally fair. And I think we're both saying a value neutral perspective. Like I don't know if it's a good outcome or a bad outcome, but it is certainly an understandable outcome of where we have been with the way players have been treated in this league, worse than any other league in American professional sports. That's for sure.
I will say if there is something awful that we find out later about, I'm not saying we will, and I I'm not implying anything
this
to
is
that
what
effect.
happens when you podcast 4 hours from no press release from a team.
Yeah, I don't know. I just keep going back to the statement with no actual release, and it all just feels very weird and very bizarre to me. That it almost leads me to say there has to be something else. And I feel like as an organization like the Spirit, you're almost opening yourself up to those to reporters wanting to ask questions. I guarantee you, Meg Lindenham, Stephen Golf, Molly of the Washington Post they're all reaching out to their contacts. They're all reaching out to their people. Hey, what's going on here? What was happening here? They might not find anything. There might be nothing. Nope, it was just a situation, and we just didn't have the staff. Everybody was, busy with other things. We didn't have a person we could get together a press release. I think they could have put together something eventually.
No, this is a choice, Ted. This was not a staffing thing. This is a decision that they made. The communications office was working on other things throughout the day and responding to emails. This was a decision they made. So it's either, as you said, there's something else at play here, or this is just, it's just the way they want to do things this time. They'd prefer to the fact that he didn't want to. And we're doing gossip stuff here because we have no information.
We have no information to go off of. We have very little information. The only tweet we got was from Jordan Small, by the way, in the front office. But I think he's been promoted up in that position. Who posted a GIF of someone breathing. So
yeah, she's now she's working as a on the equipment staff.
Yeah, so she's the only one who's posted anything this
far. She may be extremely happy that that she's not working on the comms team today. I think that might be true. She had enough of that last year. She's escaped that this time.
Let's shift gears a little bit.
Six national team players called up for friendlies.
No, but I want to say, where does the team go from here? Where do you go next from here?
Well, the rumor is that Angela Salem is gonna, not rumor, the reported information is that Angela Salem, the assistant coach, also remember Lee Nguyen returned to playing 2 weeks ago.
That probably should have been the first warning here. That something was up. Yeah.
So Angela Salem is going to run training this week and probably coach the game on Sunday against the Dash.
They've been, the sources are saying she's going to run training, but I think they're
working the background checks on the interim coaches because they don't want to again bring somebody in that later the milkshake duck interim coach.
Here's all I'm going to say. There was a certain coach that just left his position as a manager of the Netherlands in Mike Parsons. Now that would be Mark Parsons. That would be a big signing, but also it speaks to the, still the old boys club, despite, not having a more diverse, diverse management hire. I do wonder if maybe that, maybe they do have something they were already in the background lining up. And that's why because normally, like when you say a player is gone, you then have a interim manager named. Like in that announcement, It's usually like when they fired Leonardo Losada, they came out quick with a statement saying Chad Ashton is now the interim manager. Also, Mark Parsons was a general manager and a head coach here in Washington. He has experience being here. Will not surprise me in the slightest if he is named head coach. That would be the least surprising thing. I think we could see this. We could see.
The other possibility was that Mark Krikorian, the general manager of the Spirit, was going to fill in. That's what Pablo reported, but Steve Goff sort of said that is not consistent with the information that he has.
And that honestly leads me to believe that we might be getting a coaching announcement. Maybe a coaching announcement here soon about a replacement, and Mark Parsons, everything's lining up with that. But I do hope, whoever they hire up the players are okay with it. Obviously,
they better be. Apparently, they clearly need to make sure that they're okay with it.
The players were consulted and everything. So, yeah, it's a weird situation. You said it best. The Spirit trying not to have a weird season, over 2 already.
Yep.
So,
I also, I think as we talk about player power, I think it's interesting as a manager stepping into this position, sort of seeing what has gone on the last 2 years. The first year being something different, but the second year sort of saying, all right, well, clearly I know that in addition to winning games, which unfortunately Chris Ward was not really able to do this year, like I've got to keep these players on side. I've got to make sure that, and that's everybody's job. That's every manager's job. But I think that maybe more so than other clubs, you can't afford to be bad and to have malcontents. So you can do one of the others, but you cannot do both. And that was, I think, what got him here at the end, barring any other information. So I'd be curious to see, to your point, Mark Parsons is retread, and a very accomplished retread. Do they want to go with saying, all right, we've got this club that has 7 U.S. national team players on it. Do we want to entrust that to a player? We're giving somebody a chance here, and that's valid, like giving somebody who's never done this a chance, who may grow into the job and do well. Or do they say, we can't afford to do that in this particular situation with the club we have? We've got to go with a proven winner because we're only going to have these players so long, because you can't keep, there's going to be expansion drafts. These players are going to expense themselves out of contracts. So I'm curious which way this goes, right? Like, those are two sort of big pendulum swings on how they want to identify and hire. It'd be interesting to me if they say, we're gonna take a out of the box hire here and hire a manager that hasn't done this before, but we're committed to providing opportunities to move up into these positions for communities or groups that haven't had a chance in the past. It'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head. They have, I think all of this came together quicker than they thought it would. I think they thought they were in a 2-3 year project, and then they win the championship. So now you've got all these players that suddenly get all this attention. Ashley Hatch, Trinity Rodman, Ashley Sanchez, that were not getting the attention on the higher level that they were at the start of last season, at the start of 2021. So I think that came together very quickly for them. And I think you do need to go get an experienced manager, also because you have a lot of, and I think Chris Ward's deficiencies were sort of laid to bear this year through the collapses, and also through how trying to just manage to get a win with, obviously you're missing a lot of players,
and with those rosters, with those that month's rosters, looking at like having 4 national team replacement players in there.
Yeah,
I don't know if Mourinho could have managed to draw in some of those. Vintage Mourinho.
I mean, and so I think that might be playing into a role. If you get an accomplished manager, maybe you can do some better recruitment. I think clearly the move for the GM was, let's get a player who knows sort of the college scene and recruitment and everything like that. I think that was the clear sign with the general manager hire.
One area that we've not talked about that could be in play here is Chris Ward has talked about getting more players in the door for the whole season. And Jaden Shaw was a player that we thought was going to be it and then wasn't. And then no other players really came in other than national team replacement players. I'm wondering, too, is possible, when we get all the reporting out, was there tension in the front office between Chris Ward asking for things and the front office not either able or willing to provide them, as far as player sort of saying, like, look at this roster. You don't need any more toys. Like, figure out how to get some points with this extremely talented roster now that you got them back. I'm curious, just sort of seeing that, because the window's closing here, I think, next week. So I'd be interested to see if that was part of it as well. No. But we don't know. We're just guessing.
Might have a top draft pick coming in, considering how the season's going. So I'm not sure who the top player is. So you might get another top player for doing that. And trust me, finishing last and getting a top draft pick, as we've seen, is it can be lucrative. It's not like it is in MLS right now.
The Spirit actually have a game this week. Try as we might to get excited about another game. They're playing the Houston Dash on the 27th in Houston. This is a match. We don't need to tell you what the Spirit's current record is, but this is a matchup that the Spirit have generally done pretty well over the year. I think last year was the bizarre situation in which the home game was played in Houston for the Spirit. The Spirit had lost their stadium and they had to go to Houston to play the home game. And is that the one we did the Twitch broadcast?
Yeah, we did a Twitch broadcast from. Yep.
And they did not win that game. I believe they lost
2-2.
Was it 2-2 draw or 3-2 loss?
I think it was a 2-2 draw, I want to say.
That's all things fuzzy now. Either way, this is actually, we can look back in time. August 13th, 2021, 2-2 draw.
2-2 draw, yep.
But prior to that, the other two matchups were a 1-0 win by the Spirit and a 2-1 win by the Spirit. Obviously, this year is much, much different. The Houston Dash come in getting spanked by San Diego 3-1, but other than that, beat Gotham, drew against Louisville, beat OL Reign, and then beat Gotham 4-2. Gotham is another bad team this year, which is kind of interesting. They are technically bottom of the table on goal differential, even though we have one game in hand. So keep that in mind as we're looking at first round draft picks, wooden spoon race. They might be our competition.
Well, we got the game September 17th with them, so
that's true. It's the battle. It's the battle of the draft picks. Yeah. I don't need to tell you how the Spirit have done lately. After 3 consecutive draws, 2 of which of them should have been wins. They lost to the Portland Thorns at home. So this game is a game. It is certainly a game. It is for 3 points in the standings. They are technically not eliminated from the playoffs. Similar to DC United, math is still on their side. They're going to have to win, I think, every other game.
Yeah, every game. I'm almost positive about. So they got 1, 2,
maybe this
3,
is what
4,
they do.
5.
Maybe they're trying to do a 2021 here. They figure fire Chris Ward, we need an inciting incident, and that's this one, and then we can go on a run. So let's see. Go ahead.
I was going to say 11. Let's see. We had 11 points out of, obviously, you know what? I'm not even going to bother because I forget the NWSL schedule has made negative sense this year with the amount of teams that still have like 3-4 games in hand or have several games in hand. It's at this point probably not even worth for me to try to do math to figure out like what they would need to do. Just win every game, I think, is the key here.
That's it.
That gives you 18 points. That moves you to 30 points and would put you potentially in a playoff position, though a lot can change. So we'll see if it happens. I doubt it will, though. I think this is a lost season. I'll be curious to see. The team might go out firing on all cylinders once if they go out and win on Saturday, then that's when the questions will really start, because then it's gonna be like, well, what happened here? How did this deteriorate under Chris Ward's
If that happens, you know who the coach is next year? Tori Huster. That's just what we're gonna do. We're just gonna do a player coach. That's how we're gonna do this from now on, because clearly they just do not vibe with anybody. Did you just as a last sort of NWSL throwaway? Did you see Lo LaBonta's celebration after scoring this weekend?
I did not. No.
Oh boy, it is great. So search it. She scored against, who was it against? I don't know who it was against. She scores. She does she's galloping on the end line as though she's pulled her hamstring. She's doing like the fake hamstring walk, and then just sort of like pop and locks it, like throws her shoulder back and her hips. It was good because she was selling it enough with her face. She's like, oh no, I'm hurt. And then I think somebody did that in minor league baseball earlier this year, and maybe it's just a Gen Z thing. Maybe it's a TikTok dance. I don't know, but A+. I would like that. So similar to the way in which when our rallying call for DC United has been, if you're going to be bad, be interesting. We've got the end of this season here. Let's bust out some sellies. Let's find some joy. Let's find a way to make this entertaining for these Spirit players and also Spirit fans who are just at the end of they're just very tired. Washington Spirit fans, for your own sort of like mental health, do not have notifications for Spirit tweets. Like, don't get notified when they tweet, because there's a good chance in the last 2 years you're gonna get one you don't like, and it's gonna ruin your day. Like today might have ruined your day a little bit. Yeah. Anyway, if you're listening to this for the first time because you all of a sudden saw our Twitter account from today, hi. We do this every week. So I hope you like this, and tell your friends about the only Washington Spirit podcast in the game. The reigning champions, but potentially wooden spoon owners of 2022.
Weird.
We do it all.
NWSL is wild. If you ever get the chance, first time watching NWSL, it's wild. It's never, there's never a dull moment in NWSL soccer.
Certainly not in Washington either.
Nope, certainly not in Washington either. All right, that's going to do it, folks. Thank you all so much for listening for Kindred Spirits. If you're new to the show, like I said, subscribe, tell your friends about us. We are still, I think Plex Weather did drop a episode later, but we are the
Jason, come on, man.
we are the only regular weekly
take that
show who covers the team, and we have some great interviews, by the way, with I believe you did one with Bailey Feist, right?
I did. That is now available. Also,
yes.
Wow, who else? Sam Staub is next at some point. Julie Rotter we talked to earlier this month.
Yep, and Julie Rotter as well.
Chris Ward also, if you want to talk, go back in the time machine. We got Chris Ward as our first interview in episode 1. So
yeah,
go back and listen. Go back to a different time.
I'm sure our first request will be the new coach, whoever they may hire. That'll be our first request. So we no guarantees, but hopefully we get that. All right, that's gonna do it, folks. Thanks so much for listening. We'll catch you next week. Bye.
Bye.